But it's always been an argument, and I think it's been blown totally out of the water by Darryl, because research does give you the answers, and he has been focused on researching this issue from the very beginning. And those details that he's pulled up, of course, are absolutely critical in combining with the business community and with Paul and the members of the businesses on this side of the railway line to say it is absolutely a nonsensical thing to state that you cannot have adequate, safe, level crossings both for vehicles and pedestrians on this section of the line. And if you want to just go down to Hamilton or the Stewart Avenue, you can see effective level crossings that are safe and that facilitate the flow of people both in vehicles and pedestrians in particular. And this area, as was pointed out by Joan and Darryl, and certainly has been campaigned for by Paul Murphy over a long period of time, because when he was in Churchill's he could look across there and see all of the people on the other side of the railway line that were potential customers who really had a snowflake's hope in hell of getting across the line. And we've seen the buildings, as we've seen the bailout of big business from this side of the line to go over to their towers of on the other side, but no thought, of course, about either physical connectivity between, say, the health building and those buildings, or of insisting on the level crossing. And as Darryl said, there it is in black and white, you can have level crossings under circumstances of community pressure. And the communities have done it, as Joan said. They have said our need for connectivity and our need for growth in our city or our country town or whatever overrides the objections under the so-called elimination of risk policy. And that was the policy. Paul, you might have come to, I think, to Parliament at that time with the Business Chamber when we went right back in the early 90s to argue the case, and held up in front of us was the fact that you could not increase risk. How did we get Stewart Avenue? Well, they closed Hannell Street, and they used that as an argument to say, well, no, we're not increasing risk, we're just replacing one risk with another. This is not a main line. It does not have hundreds of coal trucks. It does not have the long liners that are thundering through a kilometre plus long. It has urban traffic and regional traffic, and with a well signalised crossing there is no need to increase risk at all. And I think on the little poster that Joan and her compatriots have put out, you see a very active level crossing in full swing. So it is a thank you to Joan and her committee, and it is a thank you to the rail users and the people who have a belief that rail can add to this city, not detract from it, as part of a fully integrated transport system that really demands to be funded. If you're thinking of infrastructure and growth and the fact that we're going to have 160,000 extra people in this area and supposedly 10,000 plus new workers in the city, then to pull out the rail line or to not do the level crossings is an actual nonsensical approach. So thank you for coming, thank you for listening to me, and thank you, Joan and her committee.
Jane Jacobs wrote a book, which I only know one other person who's read it, but it's called The Death and Life of American Cities. I read it with great interest. If you see a copy of it, it's a rather thick book, but Jane Jacobs writes about the 4 things that cities need to stay vital. And as she said, it's about the death and then the life of American cities. Some cities in America did what Newcastle has planned for it with the GPT and the HDC plans. And they had to draw back from that and re-put the rail back in. So one of the things that Jane talks about in her book is connectivity. Now, connectivity runs a couple of ways. What seems to be happening with the HDC proposal is that you can remove the connection to the regions while improving the connection across that little bit of rail. It's a very short piece of rail, but it's a very long piece of rail that goes to Maitland that connects right to our regional capital. We say in Save Our Rail that you should improve the connection between Hunter Street and Honeysuckle while keeping the connection to the region, to the Lower Hunter, to Maitland, to the coalfields, all of those places that is now a direct line. I've got nothing against Wickham, it's a really nice suburb. It just doesn't happen to be the centre of Newcastle. So that's what we're trying to do. We need the unity of everyone in Newcastle to say to the state government, and you can ring your Member of Parliament wherever you live, ring your member. As Darryl said, all of those members of Parliament have a say in how money is spent. So it's good if you ring somebody and point out that what we need is connectivity, and that the people of Newcastle and the people of the late Macquarie and Maitland who are here today, that's what they're after. They don't want to see Newcastle just be an island at the end of a bus route, apparently, which is what's going to happen. You'll have to get out at Wickham and get on some bus. It's not going to work. So we need you to get behind us with that. If you have a look at Save Our Rail's plans, you'll see we have other things, but this is just one thing we're drawing attention to today. So just to finish, this morning I came down with my car and I drove around from here to through Civic Gates, along Honeysuckle, through the Wickham Gates and back. It's 4 kilometres. 4 kilometres. Now, I then walked along it. I walked from here, I walked across the bridge at Civic Station, and I walked along Honeysuckle, and then I came across the bridge at Wickham. It took me 30 minutes with my dog walking briskly. That's what the problem is. You will not get people who live in Cooks Hill, who live in the Junction, who live in Newcastle East to walk to Honeysuckle. It's 4K. It's ridiculous. It's 2K that side, 2K that side to get across. So what we're saying, how many metres is it across there to get across? How many metres is it at Steele Street? Eventually there'll be a chicken franchise on that corner where the Palais was. All of their customers are 2 kilometres away at Honeysuckle. Or are they only 100 metres if there's a rail crossing? So what we're saying is that there are reasons that Newcastle West is the way it is. A lot of it is because they don't have customers. Let's get some customers back and forward across this line, and let's not have a barrier.
We want to keep the connections, as Marilyn said, between the valley and the city. And there's one thing they can move a railway station, they think, although we're going to try and prevent them doing that. They could move a railway station, but they can't move the beach from where it is. And that's what the valley people love to come down here for.
Just one thing I think that can resonate with the government, and I thought that when we met with Premier Keneally a few weeks ago, her ears did seem to prick up when we mentioned that in fact 5 level crossings had been removed from this strip of rail line. So in a sense, we're not asking for new crossings, we're asking for a replacement of crossings. And I think that's a fairly strong argument that we can use. And so when you're communicating with politicians and you're talking to people, perhaps that's something that you can remind people of.
Thank you very much, Kim.